What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Wednesday, September 28th, 2016, middle of the weekday, hump day, starting that long, slow glide down to Kaahumanu Friday and another crazy weekend here. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, and ready to answer the phone when you call on in. Now, we are still hearing the backlash from the debates, the accusations of bias, of manipulation, of outright cheating, going back and forth. But in the end, the online polls all across the United States show that Donald Trump won this one. And he's responded to criticisms that he went too gently by promising that he will be more aggressive at the next debate. And he's going to go after the issues, Benghazi, the emails, a lot harder and not let the moderator deter him. And he was trying to be a gentleman and was trying to be on the high ground, and it cost him. Nice guys finish last in politics. Now, Rudy Giuliani was out there saying that Donald Trump didn't bring up Bill Clinton's record of sexual assault on women, and he should have brought up how Hillary enabled him, but said Trump was concerned that Chelsea was in the room and didn't want to say things that would make Chelsea feel bad about her mother. Although at this point, I think Chelsea pretty much knows exactly who and what her parents are and how they got their money and how they got to be where they are. She may not know the true story of her parentage, but that's another matter entirely. Now, Hillary's campaign is out there trying to bash Donald Trump over a report that he once called a Miss Universe winner Miss Piggy over her weight, that she was putting on a lot of weight. Oh, see how insulting and degrading and no respect for women whatsoever, and just went on and on and on. And this former Miss Universe, Alicia Machado, had said that, yes, Donald Trump called her an eating machine, and Miss Piggy after she gained weight after winning the beauty pageant. And CNN is out there at the forefront of saying, see, you can't say things like it shows how much she hates women. But back in 1997, CNN made fun of her. She was putting on all this weight after winning the crown, and CNN called her, quote, the expanding Miss Universe, end quote. That's the hypocrisy we're seeing in politics and in corporate media. Remember this last year, the big stink, oh, the Confederate flag, it's a symbol of slavery and oppression. And back in the 1990s, all the candidates were using it on their campaign material in the South. Now, here's the reality. Donald Trump owned the Miss Universe pageant back then. Alicia Machado, on winning the title, was contractually obligated to keep her looks up for the year of her reign. And she didn't. And so it was Donald Trump's business to try and motivate her back into control of her weight. He had a legitimate business interest to try and discourage her from putting on all this weight. In fact, it was more legitimate for Donald Trump to make these comments than for CNN. And apparently Hillary's people are so desperate for anything they can use to attack Donald Trump, they're not doing any kind of background check because this Alicia Machado has become a giant petard on which the Hillary Clinton just hoisted itself. It turns out that back in her native Venezuela, she's accused of threatening to kill a judge. She's accused of being an accomplice to a murder attempt. She's got this huge, huge criminal record. And the Hillary campaign put her up there as this heroine for women and women's rights and shows how abusive Donald Trump is. This is not exactly a role model that you would want to have for your daughters, even though she did win the Miss Universe title. Now, we're getting a lot of new polling information coming on out. Right now, 2/3 of all voters are saying they think Hillary Clinton is concealing a serious medical condition, something that is worse than pneumonia. This is from APGFK. And they found 51% of the voters are very confident 70-year-old Donald Trump is healthy enough to be president, but only 36% had the same confidence in the health of Hillary, who's just on the verge of turning 69. Now, the New York Post has come out with a real common sense argument about why we should vote against Hillary Clinton. And that's her record as Secretary of State. She was a failure. Everything she tried to do turned into an epic disaster. We can expect exactly the same job performance as president. Hillary Clinton left the State Department in shambles and our nation weaker, and that's not even getting into the accidental or deliberate exposure of U.S. national secrets to foreign interests. We're going to take a moment here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. And as is usual, at the top of the show, we're talking about the political campaign, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And we're going to go ahead and take a phone call from Keith in Montana. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Good afternoon to you. Did you catch any of that Comey FBI grilling today?
Oh, yes. Oh, boy. I mean, it's amazing to see him squirm, but he's sticking to his original story. And it's amazing because the House committee, the Judiciary Committee, has made a solid case for the FBI to reopen the investigation, and Comey still sits there and says, nah, there isn't enough there. And they actually got this guy to admit that the FBI had known about this Reddit post by Paul Kambata, who was looking for information on how to strip email addresses from the archives one day after the State Department was notified to preserve all records. And Comey is saying, yes, the FBI knew about that. In other words, the FBI knows there was evidence tampering and an effort to cover it up, and still he will not reopen the investigation.
Yeah, I found something else that was interesting about that. It's one of those double-edged swords. I forget that distinguished idiot that was asking the question. Hi.
Jason Chavez?
No, it's like a shuck or something like that. But anyway, he was harping on this thing about Donald Trump's campaign manager trading with the Russians information like that in violation of the Logan Act. And he kept talking about the Logan Act. And I was thinking, well, gee, if you apply that, that would spread to Hillary's entire foundation and everything.
Yeah, it definitely would, and Donald Trump is not in violation of the Logan Act for merely having a discussion as to what he will do should he become president. This is a very, very desperate reach, and if we had an honest FBI, honest government, and honest media, they would say, yeah, all this stuff that Hillary Clinton was doing with the Clinton Foundation, it may not actually be a violation of the Logan Act because as Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton was empowered to do what she did, but she was definitely selling access and influence. And they're just out there desperate to find something they can use against Donald Trump, and they keep making these major blunders that open up the Hillary Clinton campaign to even more trouble than it's already in. One of the issues they did raise in this House Oversight Committee was how the FBI was just handing out immunity deals left and right like they were candy. And Comey was out there saying that they had to give immunity deals to Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson. They gave one to Brian Pagliano, who, as far as I can tell, nobody's seen him alive in at least 2 weeks now. And the FBI was saying they did it in order to get the laptops of these people. But as Ohio Representative Jim Jordan pointed out, the FBI doesn't need to offer an immunity deal to get a laptop. All they need is a subpoena or search warrant, and the laptop is theirs. And so,
did you catch? Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead.
Did you catch what Trey Gowdy said on that? That if you offer immunity to like Cheryl Mills for what's on her laptop, then it gives immunity to Hillary Clinton because it's the same shared information. I'm
not sure that actually applies because the information about Cheryl Mills cannot be used to prosecute Cheryl Mills, But the information about Cheryl Mills and Hillary Clinton can be used to prosecute Hillary Clinton and Hillary Clinton because Hillary does not have immunity. But it was very reckless for Comey to be handing out all these immunity deals. He was clearly trying to protect Hillary Clinton's inner circle by handing out all these immunity deals. But the backside of that is when they get called before Congress, they may not invoke the Fifth Amendment, and apparently some of these people did, because it wasn't known at the time that they had these immunity deals. And, of course, Brian Pagliani has simply not shown up to Congress to testify, even though he has an immunity deal. And so it's very obvious this is one of the most bizarre cases of cover-up that we've ever seen. And Comey is still out there saying, yeah, it looks really bad, but trust us, it isn't bad. We're doing the best job that we can, so forth and so on.
Well, we can show our age a little bit, but as I sat there watching that this morning there, I said, geez, this is almost identical to the Oliver North Contra scandal.
Well, it is, and it's actually, it's the grandson of it, because all of this that we're dealing with right now is linked all the way back to that Iran-Contra scandal of the mid-1980s. Gun and drug running and the money powering the campaigns of the corrupt so that they can buy and bribe their way to the highest level of government. That's where the Clintons' political fortunes really took off, was being part of that CIA operation. And that actually was a violation not only of the Logan Act, but of the Bolin Amendment as well.
Well, here's another thing I caught off of Twitter that I didn't realize before. Comey's former advisor to what bank?
HSBC. Well, he was on the board. HSBC.
Yeah, and so what is the pseudonym for HSBC?
Enlighten us.
Hong Kong. It's a bank of China.
Well,
it's based out of London. It's London.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know it's based in London, but I mean, they got caught laundering drug money. James Comey was on the board of directors at the time. They got a sweetheart deal to stay out of jail from the then U.S. Attorney for New York, Loretta Lynch. They got off with a wrist slap fine. Nobody went to jail. Loretta Lynch gets to be the Attorney General. James Comey gets to be head of the FBI, even though he has no prior law enforcement experience at all. He's always been a banker and a fixer.
Yeah, well, that's what I was getting at, is the fact that if Comey was in any type of an authoritative position like that, within that bank like that, that would also be doing favors in the Chinese realm like that. So, I mean, it is so intertangled or intermeshed.
Oh, yeah, it is. And HSBC is tangled up with the Clinton Foundation. It's a huge, huge mess. It's a Gordian knot. And like the original Gordian knot, the only way you're going to solve it is you're going to have to cut it into pieces before you can figure out what's going on.
That's right. All right, Michael, I just had to throw that at you, but I thought it was really interesting there. But again, to me, it's a dog and pony show. It's like, hey, well, we're doing something, but of course, when you realize at the end of the day, they're not doing anything. No,
nothing's going to happen here. What I really loved was the way James Comey got on out there to try and polish the image of the FBI, saying, once all the politics are over, the FBI would be seen as the institution you know and love. Mr. Comey, you're behind the times. We all remember COINTELPRO. We all remember the assassination of Martin Luther King and the framing of James Earl Ray. I certainly remember my treatment at the hands of the FBI 22 years ago. And he comes on out and says, really, you shouldn't call us weasels. And I agree with that because it's an insult to the weasels. But he's out there saying, we're honest people. We're working hard. You have to believe that we're the good guys here. No, Mr. Comey, we don't. It's not that the FBI had a good reputation before this, but you, James Comey, have absolutely destroyed what little reputation the FBI still had. And pleading with us not to call you weasels and see you in a bad light, that's not going to change a darn thing. You want to change the FBI's image? You slap the handcuffs on Hillary Clinton and all of her associates. That's the only thing that will improve the image of the FBI. I'm sorry I keep cutting you off. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, well, that would include the aiding and abetting, because even the Guardian and New York Times thoroughly admits that the FBI is behind all domestic terrorism.
Yes.
They put American lives in risk for whatever their agenda is.
Yes.
And, so if, it's the Just Us crew, whatever their agenda is, to either take down America or to divide us or whatever like that, they are complicit in aiding and abetting and all that. And I just don't see how anyone could back an organization like that.
Well, we absolutely can't. Remember what the FBI did out at Waco. Remember the Oklahoma City bombing? The gentleman who married Claire and I happened to be near Oklahoma City when it all happened, and he went on over to volunteer, and he had to show his ID 6 separate times before he was allowed to the building to look for survivors. And he said there were FBI all over there stepping over the injured people, ignoring them, just collecting up paper records and taking them away so nobody could look at them. And he told me this weird story about how these FBI agents were draping black plastic across the ends of the horizontal floor beams that had just been powdered by cutter charges. And I actually found a photo documenting the black plastic sheeting. Okay?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, okay. I thought my phone went dead for a second.
Nope.
All right, well, sounds good there, Mike. But I just thought I'd pass that on because I thought that was just a total fiasco this morning there watching that. But anyway, best to you and Claire, okay?
All right, thanks an awful lot here, and we're going to let you go. Now then, there is this very bizarre phenomenon going on of pop stars getting naked to build support for Hillary Clinton. And the first one to do it was Katy Perry, and she went on out and made this video where she strips off at the polling place, and she's out there urging everybody to come on down and vote for Hillary Clinton. Now Madonna has joined in. She's posting these naked photos to her Twitter account to endorse Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. This is getting pathetic and desperate, to put it delicately. First of all, not to be catty about it or anything, but Madonna is 58 years old. So don't even bother hunting down the Twitter pictures. But, I mean, this level of absurdity where they're trying to get you to vote for Hillary Clinton by showing you naked pop stars, that's pretty desperate and pathetic, I think. This is supposed to be an election about leadership of the country, policy, issues, the economy, the wars, and so forth. Now, Donald Trump has picked up an endorsement from former New York City Democratic mayoral candidate Andrew Stein. And he made this public on New York's AM 970 radio's The Cats Roundtable. The Hillary campaign is upset about it. And they're equally upset over the fact that following Monday's debate, donations poured into the Donald Trump campaign to the total of $18 million in the 24 hours following the debate. Because Americans have an innate sense of fair play. And when they see the corporate media cheating, they see the Hillary campaign cheating, they're going to support that underdog. The whole thing just backfired on the Hillary campaign. Now then, for the good news. In the Electoral College votes, Donald Trump is now ahead. If the election were held today and there was no cheating, big if on that one, I will grant you, Donald Trump would get 292 votes. Hillary Clinton would get 246. 270 is the magic number that makes you the president. So in the Electoral College poll, Donald Trump is winning the presidency right now. All right, we're going to grab a couple of phone calls. Scott in Texas. Oh, well, actually, we're coming up in a commercial break, so I'm going to ask you guys to just hang on. We're going to take a 3-minute break for commercials, and then I'll come on back and put you on the air. So we'll be back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're going to go right to the phone. Scott in Texas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, if I saw Katy Perry or Madonna nude, I would either have to bleach bit my eyeballs out or just shoot myself in the face, whichever comes first.
Well, let's be honest. Katy still looks pretty good. Okay? You know.
It's an opinion. But anyhow, I was watching the Comey thing. Somebody was streaming it online this morning, and everybody, including me, was just slamming that guy. I mean, flat out just cussed him out, telling him he should be in jail along with Clinton. It was amazing because everybody was just dogging that dude just right and left. So I thought that was pretty great. If they ever went back and read all that stuff, holy smoke, they would just get lit up like a Christmas tree.
Well, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they're out there already trying to, measure the public opinion, and it's all negative. It's all negative. Everybody in this country not getting a government paycheck of some kind is just absolutely fed up.
Oh, livid. Livid is an understatement.
Yes.
And if John from Barbados would create a YouTube channel, I know me and another buddy of mine here in Texas would sub to him quick. So that's all I got, and carry on.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Mike, I don't know how much you know about Oklahoma City. I'm sure you do know quite a bit, though. I don't know if you've ever heard of Officer Donald Browning and Sergeant Yakey. Officer Browning was one of the first responders. He was a canine officer, and he saw stuff that showed that there were like explosives inside that building and all.
Yep.
And he was threatened. Right in his own police station, he was threatened by FBI agents. Him and his family were threatened if they opened their mouth. The other, Sergeant Yakey was actually murdered. And he said his last transmission was he's being followed by the Fed. He was found dead in a federal residence. They say suicide, but the way it happened, you knew it was suicide.
Yeah, it's like when Gary Webb, was killed. 2 gunshots to the back of the skull and officially declared a suicide.
So this guy was actually tortured. He had cut marks all over his body, beaten, and then supposedly he shot himself in the back of the head.
Yes.
About a mile away. And the other one was Grand Juror. He unfortunately died of natural causes not too long ago. Hoppy Heidelberger. Hoppy Heidelberg. That's a funny name, but that was his name. And he was a grand juror. After too many questions, kicked off the grand jury and again threatened by the hoodlums known as the FBI. Now, I fully suspect that the FBI was involved in that bombing. Again, Slick Willie was behind it. This Slick Willie was behind it. The whole Clinton bunch tried to make, again, basically at the time he was losing a lot of popularity. He just lost to Congress. He was upset with so-called right-wing talk radio.
Mm-hmm.
Really, that kind of talk radio is really very mild as far as I'm concerned. But, they wanted to blame it on the far right, kind of like now with the alt-right. And I don't know where McVeigh comes in, whether he was really an undercover agent of some kind for the government, possibly still in the Army, but kind of like a blacklist or something.
Well, let me put a few comments in here. First of all, where Timothy McVeigh supposedly assembled his truck bomb was a Christian separatist commune called Elohim City, and it came out during the trial of one of the people that was associated with that the guy who founded and ran Elohim City was also an FBI informant. So this thing was probably a staged operation to keep Americans scared of domestic terror groups. One of the reasons they targeted the Oklahoma City federal building is, as you know, there was a growing public anger over what the government had done down in Waco, and Congress had called for a complete investigation. And the FBI and the BATF had collected together all the evidence and all the paperwork, and they had stored it in the Murrah Federal Building. And it was all destroyed when that bomb went off, bombs, plural, went off, and Congress was left with nothing to work with in terms of finding out what had really been going on. Now, in terms of who really did it, there was actually a BATF program out in New Mexico for 6 months prior, building and setting off truck bombs to study methods of domestic terrorists. The guy who was in charge of that program was a block away from the Murrah building when it went up. All right, so Mark, we're going to let you go and take a break for commercials. Got 2 more calls when we get back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're going to go right back to the phones. Francis in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha to you.
Aloha nui nui.
That was a good comeback. You know something? I watched, of all the debates that I could have ever viewed, I actually bothered to sit up that hour and a half, that 90 minutes, and actually observe that debate, or whatever you want to call that thing, that shenanigans, dog and pony show, whatever you want to call it.
It was a theater production of Let's All Get Donald Trump.
Well, whatever. I mean, I don't think I had enough potato chips or popcorn to be able to cover the whole show because, quite frankly, I couldn't help but I could not stop laughing.
Yes. No
matter what happened. If it wasn't, now, mind you, this from an outside point of view of the whole thing between the whole paradigm, the left, right, Democrat, Republican paradigm, and all that stuff. I'm looking at it from an outside point of view. Between, just to be fair, Hillary looking like as if she was on some good drugs or who knows what was in her outfit to keep her upright, to Trump looking like a dog that was about ready to jump her neck, for that matter. And quite frankly, I really couldn't have blamed him. However,
no, I couldn't either, and or for that matter, you know, grab hold of Lester Holt's ankle and give it a good shake.
That would have been now,
okay.
Now, I do have to admit, though, when they got in this whole, albeit there's a lot of things that could have been done during that debate. However, you still have two other debates coming up.
Yes.
So maybe he was just simply whizzing the whistle, as was she, what whistle she's got, for those two. Now, he is a stand-up man now that he's gone and dished out his tax forms, paperwork, whatever you want to call it, and his loan propositions and all that kind of good stuff. He's actually come out front with that and made that available to whomever in that electoral process concerned. Now the question is she going to be the stand-up man and actually deal with the email crap and get that out of her way?
Of course not, because if I'm correct, okay, and Hillary was selling secrets out of the State Department using her weak server to deliver and the charitable foundation to collect and launder the payments, that is a secret nobody in Washington, D.C. wants ever to come out.
Well, you know something? In that case, since he's been a stand-up man and do what he did, if she would be willing to do that, since he went ahead and made the first step, then quite frankly, she's condemned her own self by not even bothering. Regardless of whether or not, how condescending, how much it implodes D.C., as she is trying to keep under wraps, for that matter, she's basically condemned herself right from the get-go. From the first,
well, at this point, Hillary knows she can't beat Donald Trump in a fair election. She's going to go through the motions and go through the debates, and she is absolutely convinced that she is going to be able to steal this election. But if Donald Trump gets a landslide vote, if he gets 70-80% of the vote, there's no way they can flip that around without everybody in the country knowing that's what happened. That could seriously lead to an outright civil war.
Well, true, but they have done more peculiar things. I mean, after all, 9/11 is one example, let alone Sandy Hook and ad nauseum and whatever. But the question is that how many more good drugs are they going to have her on for the remaining debates? And for that matter, yes, I did happen to catch that one dude who ran up and got paperwork off of her pedestal and all that stuff there at the end of the debate, which seemed kind of like. I thought it was probably their way of saying, okay, she's done with the paperwork, we'll just take it off there and be polite about it so she don't have to go back and collect it. So
I think what it was is she did have the questions in advance, and they were all laid out for her to just read. And we do know that she had something underneath her outfit, because after it was all over and she was bending over to shake the hands of people in the audience, you could clearly see these little boxes and wires under her clothes on her backside. Now, whether that was a TENS machine for pain, or a relay for a bone conductance headphone, or even a drug pump. Could even be a drug pump to keep her going. We don't know what it is, but there was something there.
Now, a question for you is this, or for anybody for that matter in the political scene, is did Trump also have access to the same questions or whatever that he could look at to see what was being asked?
Officially, nobody was supposed to have access to the questions ahead of time. We also know that Hillary's lawyers got an arrangement with NBC that Hillary would not be asked any cross-examination questions by the moderator because she can't think on her feet all that well. And that's one of the reasons why Holt was constantly interrupting and challenging Donald Trump, something like 50 times, and he only interrupted Hillary Clinton twice. I mean, the bias was on full display. At this point, everybody inside and outside the corporate media know that debate moderator was prejudiced against Donald Trump. And it was kind of nice to see him destroy his own credibility and that of NBC News live on the air.
Then maybe they should use Matt Lauer again for the debate instead of Lester Holt. Well,
I don't know who was running the next two debates. I don't think NBC got all three of them, did they?
I couldn't tell you because, for one thing, I don't keep up with all that rat trap garbage that they do amongst themselves, for that matter. After all, the conglomerates handle that crap, not me.
Well, I'm going to look into that bit. If NBC is running all three of the debates, I mean, then we know that all three of the debates are going to be, let's get Donald Trump and attack him because we have to put the queen of the drug lords on the throne, or we're not going to go on being funded by millions of dollars of losses.
Well, you know something, Michael? It's a well-known fact that all the corporate medias are bought and paid for. No matter who has it, even though it's going to be pretty strange looking if only one network is hosting the debate for the remaining two. It's going to be a screaming genie-type scenario that, oh, my gosh, you're kidding me. I hate to use this analogy, but if only one major network ends up hosting all three debates, that would make a drag queen pissed.
All right, we're skating awfully close to the language. It's going to get the FCC to come in and be very rude to our on-air affiliates, so we need to back off on that. I'm going to find out that question there. Francis, we've got a bunch of phone calls waiting to go here, so I'm going to thank you and let you go, and let's switch over to Steve in California. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Just to let you know, heads up, I just saw there's another school shooting in South Carolina, a place called Townville, near Greenville, South Carolina, which is also near to a place called Sandy Hill. Interesting. But two students and two children and a student appeared to have been shot. And I just wanted to throw that at you. It's probably a false flag, and of course, the agenda will be rolled out.
Who knows? Who knows? The story, as I heard, is it's two students and one teacher were wounded by a student shooter. And, of course, the gun grabbers are out there saying, it's ban guns, and you've got other groups saying, it's all the violence on TV and movies. I'll tell you what it is. Look at the example that is being set for our children by our own government. You can't get along with somebody, you bomb them. You can't get along with somebody, you waterboard them. You can't get along with Saddam Hussein, you lynch him. Can't get along with Muammar Gaddafi, you have him beaten to death and sodomized. Can't get along with these people, send in the drones. If you want to know why America's young people are becoming so violent, look at the example being set for them by the government. That's, in my opinion, that's it right there. That's the problem.
I agree. I totally agree. They're desensitized, and that's how you solve your problems. I agree.
All right.
Hey, thanks, Michael.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mike in Fort Lauderdale. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, sir. Well, one's a statement and one's a question. The statement is you had a caller that called about the K-9 officer that was threatened by an FBI agent. Just as a point of reference, not every person presenting an FBI ID is going to really be FBI. You will never encounter an NSA agent producing an NSA ID card. You will never encounter a CIA agent producing a CIA ID card, but they do have access to quote-unquote legitimate IDs from different agencies.
Well, here's the problem with that.
Something to think about.
Well, I'm sure that James Comey appreciates your stepping on in and trying to get the FBI off the hook, but we've seen the FBI engage in exactly this kind of behavior all along following the Vince Foster affair. Remember the one confidential witness? He was being threatened by the FBI. for talking about the fact that the crime scene wasn't the way the official story said. So I'm sorry, in my opinion, and it's probably shared by most Americans, the FBI is the modern American version of the Gestapo. That's how they act. That's how they've always acted. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to cut them any slack here. My personal experience with the FBI was extremely negative.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not them. What I'm saying is that there's a possibility that it's a different agency also.
Well, we're going to have to agree. We're going to have to agree to disagree. So, Mike, thanks an awful lot for that call. We're going to switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Yeah, I think some of your callers are making a mistake where they think Trump. And I know you think he should have been more aggressive, but he needs to say he's going to be more aggressive at the next debate and do the same thing he did this time, because it cuts the media off from making him look like the villain. You know, he needs to just keep hitting. She's been there 30 years and accomplished nothing. He needs to keep going on about the debt. And he also needs to keep going on about all the $7 trillion that we spent for, the war, which she was responsible a lot for creating this mess. But not only that, but one thing he didn't bring up was the 8,500% increase in terrorism, and then he could just use examples like New York, New Jersey, France, Germany. If he sticks to those issues, he's going to win. He needs to not go after Bill Clinton, because Chelsea's going to be in the audience every time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's a strategy, because the media then can't use those issues to go after him. You know what I mean? He needs to. Well,
I'll tell you what. First of all, I did check, and yes, unfortunately, NBC is running all three of the debates. They got the contract for that whole thing. Something Donald Trump should bring up is, first of all, when Hillary says she's got 30 years of experience, most of that is not actually holding any official office. Being the First Lady of Arkansas isn't a legal office. Being First Lady in the White House is not a legal office. She didn't actually enter public life until she became a senator, and she only became a senator because John F. Kennedy Jr. conveniently fell out of the sky just as he was about to declare for that seat. And you need to say, okay, you were in the State Department and you were in the Senate. What did you actually do? Well, in the Senate, you voted for the Iraq War. In the State Department, everything that Hillary Clinton started to do turned out to be a disaster. Benghazi, Libya as a whole, it's been one disaster after another. And somewhere along the line, the State Department, under Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, misplaced $6 billion with a B dollars. And that's what Donald Trump has to be talking about.
Exactly. And he needs to just stick to those issues. Don't bring anything up about Bill Clinton, because that'll just create the media to go after him as the villain. And, like I said, if he sticks to these issues, he'll win, because then that cuts her off from, she'll actually turn more aggressive then, because if she's looking at the polls like everybody else is, she knows she's losing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So he needs to stick to those issues. Mike, real quick on Syria, if you saw Kerry talk to Lavrov over the phone, and he said that they're going to not have any more cooperation with the Russians over Aleppo. Well, then who cares? Because the Aleppo is it. They know it. That's why he was on the phone.
Yeah, they know it, and it looks like Aleppo is all but back in the hands of the Syrian forces right now. I mean, Kerry is just out there trying to act like this is still somehow under the control of the United States, and it's an epic foreign policy blunder. It's a major whoopsie. And they're looking at this generation's version of the defeat of Vietnam, which I know Obama does not want on his legacy, but he's going to get stuck with that. And they can't come up with any kind of a reason for the U.S. to go into Syria in a full-on invasion that the American people are going to accept, and with us only, 40 days away from the election, starting a new war is going to work against the incumbents and for Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump has come across as a peace candidate. Hillary Clinton has made no bones about the fact she thinks wars are great. She wants war with Iran. She wants war with Russia. And so starting a new military venture right now is definitely going to work against Hillary Clinton.
And a giant terrorist attack here is going to go against Hillary Clinton, because then Trump can use that as the increase in terrorism. By starting all these wars, we have created ISIS, So
and the complete and utter failure of the current administration's, war against terror here, failure of the FBI, failure of the CIA, failure of the NSA, failure of the White House. Each new terror attack, even if it's accepted at face value, it is broadcasting that none of the security steps the Washington, D.C. has taken, all in violation of the Constitution and taking away our rights and freedoms, they don't stop the terrorists.
And I just want to have one more quick comment. I hope Janet Yellen had a better day than today. Thanks, Mike.
All right, we're going to let you go here, and I got more calls waiting on the line, but I want to get through a couple of stories and actually get to the news here. Under Hillary Clinton, the Democratic Party has become the party of the petty thieves. There has been an epidemic, one would almost suspect an organized campaign of Hillary supporters sneaking onto the front lawns of Trump supporters and stealing their Trump signs over and over and over again. The homeowners are taking steps. One of them actually rigged his sign with a giant bungee cord, so when the Hillary supporter came up and grabbed it and started to run, got yanked back on his rear end. Another guy got really creative, wired his Trump sign with a taser, had something like 6 or 7 signs stolen, wired one with a taser, zapped the guy, and he was still there when the police showed up. He's in jail for trespassing. Now, do you remember Bernard von Nothaus? He's a very well-known monetary engraver. He actually designed coinage for the state of Hawaii. He used to live here. He was part of the Liberty Dollar movement. He created the Ron Paul dollar, at which point the Treasury Department swooped on in and shut them down, probably because President George W. Bush's little feelings were hurt. They put Ron Paul on the dollar and they didn't put me on there. You shut them down. Well, von Nothaus has come out with his new mint, and he's got a Donald Trump dollar. And you can bet I'm certainly going to want to get one of those. We got to take a break for commercials. Back with more phone calls after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go right back to the phones. Paul in Alabama. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, aloha, my friend. Love the show.
Thank you.
One of the best on that you around. Okay. I thought it was telling during the debate when Holtz asked Trump if he would honor the voting results. I don't recall Hillary being asked the same question, and I think they're going to throw that back up in his face on down the line when they find out there is so much fraud going on.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I mean, Holtz is looking for a guarantee that if they steal the election, Donald Trump isn't going to kick up a fuss, or he's trying to put Donald Trump on the spot. But you're right. He certainly didn't ask that question of Hillary, and we know why. They're already setting it up where if Hillary loses, they're going to claim it was a Russian plot.
Yeah, and also, she's here talking about Miss Piggy, all this stuff, like, what about the deplorables comment? I mean, come on, that's like a huge section of America she insulted. That wasn't even brought up.
Yeah, Trump should have brought that up as well. I have to be very honest. I got the feeling Donald Trump wasn't feeling his best that night, but I don't think he wanted to say anything. I think he had a cold or something, and he also didn't have his usual energy. And I think the only reason he didn't say anything about it is he doesn't want to be seen as trying to grandstand, I think he's trying to keep that health issue by saying he's healthy and she's not, even if all he has is a little tiny cold. But between his energy level and the sniffling, which was unfortunately amplified by that particular microphone, I got a distinct feeling that he was a little bit under the weather.
Yeah, me too. But how about, woe be it for me to talk about how somebody looks. But when I saw Hillary, it reminded me of the movie Magic with Anthony Hopkins and the little dummy. Hey, schmucko. I mean, she had that look on her face of that creepy clown doll thing, just, I don't know, it just tripped me out. It just creeped me out the whole time.
Well, like I keep saying, Hillary reminds me of the crabby old aunt that you go out of your way not to meet at the family reunions.
Yeah. Oh, did you ever find out why we had the gas leak in Alabama?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, well, let me tell you a story about a man named Jed. He was a poor mountaineer. He barely kept his faith, Hey, have a good day, man. See you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. I actually knew the Ebsons. They were good friends, and he was a very nice guy. His wife, Nancy, was wonderful, and that was a lot of fun hanging out with him. Excellent sailor. Buddy Ebsen had actually been the first choice to play the Tin Man in the movie Wizard of Oz, but it turned out that he was just terribly allergic to the aluminum and chemicals used in the Tin Man's costume, and that's why he had to drop out of the role and let Jack Haley take it over. A little bit of Hollywood history for those of you who like such things. We got to do our top of the hour station break, and boy, we got the calls piling on in. So we'll be back in just a minute. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We got a bunch of callers waiting, but I want to actually get some news in here. Over at the Still Report, they have an area that we all need to be concerned about. Back in 2012, there was a big stink because the military serving overseas are required to submit their votes early. And the votes did not arrive until way too late. They missed the deadline, and their votes were not counted. And the military tend to vote Republican. And right now, polls among the military are showing them very heavily favoring Donald Trump. And so the Still Report is pointing out it's happening again. They're being contacted by the families of military people serving overseas. The deadline to submit votes to be counted for this election is October 11th. And the ballots still have not been delivered. Now, the document dump from the FBI has contained a very interesting bombshell, and it reveals that Barack Obama was sending emails to Hillary Clinton's private email server. He was using a pseudonym to do it. Now, this is important for two reasons. One, Barack Obama, when the server became public knowledge, he stated on TV that he first heard about the private email server from the corporate media news reports, so they had no idea that it existed. So that was a lie. Second, using pseudonyms, and by the way, so did Chelsea Clinton, indicates a desire to conceal what's going on. Now, for official government business, you classify the document and you leave a paper trail. By going to this outside server, they were outside public record-keeping laws, and yet clearly they had something to hide, and that's why they were using pseudonyms. And that's why those deleted emails are so important. Because obviously what was going on there needed to be hidden, and it needed to be hidden from the government as much as from the people itself. Now, as you know, Hillary Clinton has a new book out, Stronger Together, and the corporate media is lauding it. It's a masterpiece, so forth and so on. It's for sale over at Amazon. And readers who have actually wasted the money to buy the book have been posting very critical comments about it, very negative reviews, and have discovered Amazon is deleting any negative reviews of Hillary Clinton's book, which means you cannot trust Amazon's reviewing system at all. They just shot their own credibility to little tiny bits. For all we know, the sales figures for the book are being rigged. It's one giant lie. Whatever Donald Trump had on the debate must be contagious, because I'm coming down with the snifflies. All righty, let's go back to the phones here. Donna in New Mexico, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Hi, Mike. Listen, I sent you a link to the schedule for the presidential debates.
Yes.
And the next debate, for not the VP, but the presidential, is hosted by two moderators. And one of them is Martha Raddatz from This Week ABC, and the second one is Anderson Cooper, oh boy, CNN. The third debate is being hosted by one moderator, which is Chris Wallace from Fox.
Okay.
So, just so you know. And I want to say one thing about the debate, and that is never bring a pocket knife to a gunfight. Okay, and I hope that the second debate is he's going to come out with his Uzi or whatever he's got. The other thing, and this may be off topic for this hour, but I don't know if you've talked about this yet. I haven't caught the whole show. What the U.S. giving an ultimatum to Russia over Syria?
Well, they've always been giving ultimatums to Russia over Syria. What's the latest one?
This happened today, phone conversation between John Kerry and Sergei Lavrov, and the U.S. is warning Russia to cease and desist in Aleppo, or the United States is threatening to end all cooperation, not that there is any, but they're contending there is,
of course,
between
there is.
the U.S. and Russia.
Yeah, we had a caller who called.
I would call that an escalation.
Yeah, we had a caller in the last hour who called in on that one, and it's a bluff because there is no cooperation. When the U.S. was doing their first attack on the Syrian armed forces, the Russians called the coordination center. And the officer who was supposed to be there for the American version of cooperation was away from the telephone for the entire hour the attack was taking place. So there is no cooperation. And what Kerry is really threatening to do is go after Russia itself over Syria. They are getting very, very desperate. But at this point, there's almost nothing left of Aleppo to fight over. And the fight seems to be moving to the northeast of Deir Azor because the U.S. just bombed some bridges on the Euphrates, and I'm going to be getting into that in a little bit.
Okay, one more thing, though. The manpads that are being given to the so-called moderate rebels,
yes,
the surface-to-air missiles, that's not good. I mean, I'm seeing an escalation here. I'm seeing a failure of détente. You know, the UN Security Council, the Russians and the U.S. are both saying we don't have much to talk about. So I have a concern with that, but that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have a concern. I mean, the U.S. needs this war. The U.S. is pushing for this war. The only sticking point is finding some way to convince the American people that this is all Russia's fault. And right now, that's a very tough sell after all these interventions and drone strikes and waterboarding and all the rest of it's been going on. We all know who the aggressor is. And this thing could go nuclear, and we're going to be talking about that after the phone calls we have right now. We're going to close the phone lines because I got some real news. We're going to do a shout-out here to our on-air affiliates who are just rejoining our network. We're getting into the war zones, and first we're going to take a few more phone calls. Milton in Pennsylvania, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, yeah, does it cry wet and lie? That you showed Hillary? Anyway, the real reason why I called was when I was in Occupy, we were in a city of some 60,000 people, and we were lucky we got 30 active people. And what we found was that the people that are in their comfort zone, getting the food stamps, they get collecting welfare check and all, they have a comfort zone, and they don't respond. And we found this to be a big culprit in our movement here in eastern Pennsylvania.
Well, it's not a comfort zone, it's a zoo. And if you remember the movie Madagascar, what was the prime wisdom of all the animals? You never bite the hand that feeds you. And the reason the government is trying to create a culture of dependency is to keep us under control. There's only one problem with that. Sooner or later, the money runs out. That's what happened to ancient Rome. But that's why, even with this horrible economy, you've got the government literally running ad campaigns to get people to sign up for food stamps. It's a great thing. And those people who are still working and paying the taxes for all these free handouts are getting a little sick and tired of it.
Yeah. Well, another thing, do you think Donald Trump, not come out and bash the senators in Congress, but maybe he should start making a list and making it out there to the public that, hey, this guy is good because he thinks like me and he'll work good with me in office, and this guy is not so good, and just put it out there, food for thought?
It could be, but of course that's the job of the independent media right now, to get this information out there. In a way, Rudy Giuliani is showing us what the job of a hatchet man is actually all about. The candidate or the leader wants to take the high ground, but he does need somebody or some mechanism to get the dirt dished out that needs to be dished out, and that's what Rudy Giuliani is doing. And, of course, we're all helping Donald Trump do that as well. We're keeping alive all these questions about Benghazi, the Clinton Foundation, the possible betrayal and treason by Hillary. We're keeping alive the fact that James Comey had absolutely no business letting Hillary Clinton off the hook because he doesn't think she intended to do wrong when Title 18, Section 793 makes it clear intent is not a factor. And we're just going to keep churning this out, and you are all part of the independent media, which means you take all this information, you take the sites, and you go on out and you talk to people. Because Hillary has got this very well-funded grassroots propaganda effort going on to try and convince everybody that this is all a myth. It's part of the vast right-wing conspiracy. It's, people who hate women and hate gays and all the rest, and that there's absolutely no truth to any of this. So we're going to have to go on out. Every one of you needs to be part of the campaign for truth. And we've only got 40 days. And so if you have been sort of waiting for the ideal time to step on in and be an active member of the Truth Revolution, this is the time to do it.
Yes. Okay, Michael, thank you. I know you got important other people in news. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Mary in New Jersey. Aloha, Mary. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Mary, are you there? Mary in New Jersey, going once. All right, we're going to switch.
My fault.
Mary, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. We had a little glitch in the control room. It's that darn mutant hamster again. What's on your mind?
Okay. Just during the debate, at the end of the Alex Jones show, I think Paul Watson noticed this. He did a video, and he noticed there were some little hand signals going on there. When, I don't know, one thing she would rub on one side of the nose, and every time Trump was challenged, she rubbed on the other side of her nose like 40 some odd times.
Yeah, I saw that, and Paul Joseph Watson did point it out that when she would do this little nose maneuver, it was clearly a signal to him to step on in and intervene with whatever Donald Trump was trying to say. And again, everybody saw he interrupted Donald Trump 50 times, Hillary Clinton only twice to try and maintain the illusion of fairness and impartiality, but that illusion is now absolutely gone. So,
yeah, I thought that was very interesting.
I mean, here's the wisdom to follow. If there is a way to cheat, Hillary Clinton will use it. Remember, her first job in government was on the Watergate committee, studying how Richard Nixon's committee to reelect the president basically rigged the reelection. She's got a college-level education on political dirty fighting, and she's using every single bit that she can. I will grant you Richard Nixon didn't have pop stars getting naked for him. He probably would have appreciated that, but, that's a new wrinkle.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to switch to Steve in California. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Normally don't do that, but I just surfing the net here trying to find out what's going on in mainstream media, what they're talking about. And I came across an article that says Congress overrides Obama's veto of 9/11 bill. Now, the question I pose to you is, if the Americans are allowed to sue over 9/11, the Saudis over this, don't you think Saudi Arabia will probably use their oil as leverage or pull back and use the oil against us? Not giving us what we want?
Here's why that legislation is dangerous. It's just like the lawsuit that was being filed against Iran for terrorism. It's basically a lawsuit by accusation only. There's no proof that Saudi Arabia had anything to do with 9/11. There's no proof that Iran was involved in the terrorism. It's just a desperately broke United States government embarking on a program of plundering and looting other nations around the earth on the flimsiest of legal pretexts. But I'll tell you what Saudi Arabia is going to do. They're going to start pulling their assets out of this country so they can't be seized. This could trigger a financial crash. And I think that's probably the main reason why Obama did veto this legislation. But Israel tells Congress, you will override this so that we can sue the Saudis and take their money because God intended for us to have the money and all the rest of this other nonsense. But it could trigger Saudi Arabia liquidating all their American investments, pulling the money out of the banks. They've got billions and billions of dollars over here. If they yank it all at once, it's going to be an absolute disaster. This is one of the most stupid and reckless things I've ever seen Congress do.
So they'll have their excuse for the economic collapse then.
They could blame it on Saudi Arabia, but everybody's going to understand, well, you were going to take their money anyway. Of course they're going to take it home. It's just like this thing with bail-ins in the banks. I mean, if you know the bank is going to start helping themselves to your money, what's the smart thing to do? Take your money out of the bank. Yeah. It's already starting to happen to Deutsche Bank.
Right. Hey, thanks, Michael.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to go to Bill in North Carolina. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, this is Bill from North Carolina. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine. You're on the air.
Okay. I had a long-time listener, first-time caller. I had a question about James Como. He's been in the news recently, FBI director. I'm wondering if there was a vetting process for his approval as FBI director. Senate subcommittee that approved him. Do you know?
Well, he was nominated by the president, and then Congress has to basically vote to confirm how much actual checking was done. We don't know, but I find it amazing that Congress went ahead and confirmed James Comey as FBI director when the man has no prior law enforcement experience, and certainly his behavior right now warrants an impeachment.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about. How on earth did he get approved? I mean, are there some Republican senators here we need to speak to? Or I heard John Cornyn had a hand in this, or I'm concerned about my two Republican senators in North Carolina. Were they involved in the vetting process, and how can you find out?
Well, you'd have to contact their offices and find out what their record is on that. But in the end, it appears to have been a pro forma vote. The president has appointed him. We're just going to vote him on through because we have more important things to do, like keeping our donors and supporters happy.
That's a shame. Whoever approved him didn't do the people's work. I'm sorry. Okay, thanks for that question, and we'll talk to you again.
All right, we'll talk to you again, and we're going to go to John in Barbados, and this is going to be our last call for a while because I really do need to get to the news here. So, John, what's on your mind today?
Aloha, Michael. Yes, this nonsense with the Saudis. Of course, if anybody sues, the Saudis can come back with lots of information about 9/11 that maybe the government really doesn't want aired in open court. And I think it's going to create more problems for the administration than it solves.
Well, I think Saudi Arabia is going to have a valid point. If somebody takes them to court to sue them, Saudi Arabia is going to say, what actual proof do you have that Saudi Arabia as a country was involved in this? Because, first of all, the fact that the named suspects included Saudis does not prove involvement of the Saudi government. Second of all, the FBI director at the time came on out and admitted the identities were all based on IDs that were fakes. And they were very good fakes, nation-state fakes, and a lot of those people turned out to be alive after 9/11 was over. One of them was a Saudi, was a pilot for the Saudi National Airlines, and he successfully sued the U.S. government for defamation. So there's your reasonable doubt right there. But when you have a government that is so absolutely broke that they will do anything to grab money from other countries, I expect they'll be able to find a judge who will go along and say, oh, yes, the court has a true finding that Saudi Arabia did 9/11 and therefore we're going to take their money. But I'm sure the Saudis are going to start looking to bring their money back home right now. I would. If I were in their position, I'd be liquidating the investments. I'd be calling in the loans. I'd refuse to roll over any of the investments, and I'd just get my money out. Because Saudi Arabia doesn't have it to lose. They're in serious economic problems over there right now. They're just going to yank their money out.
I want to get back now to the Syrian situation. According to my information, the reason for John Kerry's desperate call to Lavrov, the Syrian Arab Army is in the southeast of Aleppo. They've already taken the citadel and the center.
Yes.
And they're squeezing the terrorists into one small area of this latest part of Aleppo, and it looks like by the end of this week they'll be driven out, but who knows? It may take a little longer. But that, as far as I can see, is this desperate move by John Kerry to withdraw the non-existent cooperation with Russia. And I think...
Well, it's just another way of trying to make it look like this is Russia's fault. Russia's refusing to cooperate with us, and therefore they're the bad guys. You know, they actually came out and said Russia's responsible for the bombing of the UN convoy, even though they didn't actually drop the bombs. All right, John, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, bring me in after the commercial.
Stay on the line. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And before we go back to John in Barbados, Fox News is rerunning clips from Comey's grilling at the hands of the House committee. And they've got him up there where he's saying the investigation into Hillary Clinton was done by professionals, and it was done the right way. And with the sound turned off, he's coming across like a used car salesman, sort of Cal Worthington on one of his off days. No, it wasn't done the right way. And unless the FBI's idea of the right way is always to protect the leadership. But either James Comey does not actually know what is in Title 18, or he's just hoping that you don't, because the reality is, under Section 793, ill intent is not required. If you expose national secrets through negligence, that's good for 10 years in jail and lifetime ban on holding any public office. Hillary is guilty of that one, provably, in particular because of an email that she sent to one of her subordinates instructing him to remove the classification headings from a document and send it by non-secure means. And it doesn't matter what was in the document. It doesn't matter if her subordinate actually carried it out. The issuance of the order by Hillary Clinton is a felony violation of Title 18, Section 793. And if James Comey doesn't know that, he should lose his job immediately and turn it over to somebody who actually knows how to do the job. That's another reason why I want Donald Trump to win the White House. He's talking about Trey Gowdy as the next Attorney General. And that's why the narcocracy is afraid. They're afraid of a U.S. government that might actually decide to start enforcing the laws regarding drug running, money laundering, and corruption. All right, we're going to go back to John in Barbados. John, you had something else you wanted to add?
Yes, concerning Turkey and the destruction of these bridges across the Euphrates.
Yes.
Well, according to a deputy prime minister who just gave the U.S. the middle finger and told the U.S. The Turkish relationship with Russia and Vladimir Putin is none of your business. And what appears to be happening is I've heard several stories from different people over there that actually Turkey and Russia have got a plan for the Turks to actually go down into Raqqa, which won't mean that these bridges that the Americans have knocked out is meaningless. So it looks like the Turks and the Russians are going to be working together to get into Raqqa. So who knows what's happening really, but these are the stories that I'm hearing.
Well, looking at the second attack on Deir ez-Zor, they destroyed 2 bridges, and looking at the area in a map, there's a sparsity of bridges across the Euphrates that can support military traffic. And by destroying the 2 that they've talked about, it forces the Syrian army to use this one main bridge to get north of the Euphrates. And that concentrates them in one place, makes them an easier target. Think Battle of Stirling or Horatius at the bridge, and you get the idea. And so it appears that the U.S. is preparing to defend their terrorists to the northeast of Deir ez-Zor. And they're already laying the ground truth. But if you're right and Russia and Turkey are going to go into Raqqa, then it's all over. In any event, the Russians have already developed a very capable emergency military bridge, the PMP floating bridge. It just drives up to one side of the river, flips on over to the other side. It's got pontoons. It has a carrying capacity of 60 tons, meaning main battle tanks. And
well, I was just going to point that out, Michael. You stole my thunder. In this latest piece of nonsense, the drills in Pakistan with the Pakistani army. They tested that bridge over rivers there. And I was going to say that, you know, that was obviously a test run for going over the river Euphrates. So, you know, what does America think it's up to? I mean, Putin is beating the pants off Obama and Lavrov at every turn. So is, Kerry. So Putin and Lavrov are beating the pants off these people at every turn. It's almost
they really
laughable.
are. I mean, the possibility that the U.S. is just going to haul off and invade Syria and risk a war with Russia, it's very real right now. And it may come down to just Obama's ego and not wanting to suffer a military defeat as part of his legacy. All right. Thank you for the phone call, John. We're going to take a commercial break, then we're going to come back and do some real news. The phone lines are closed until further notice. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And a reminder, the phone lines are closed. We're going to get some news here. If I have a little more time, in hour number 3, we'll open the phone lines again. Something that is very, very concerning here is Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter confirming that the United States does not have a no first use policy in regard to nuclear weapons. It's a very roundabout way of saying that the U.S. is perfectly willing to launch a nuclear attack unprovoked on whoever they feel like doing it to. Now remember, despite all the screams about Saddam's nuclear weapons and Iran's nuclear weapons and North Korea's nuclear weapons, in all of history there's only ever been one nation psychotic enough to actually use nuclear weapons of mass destruction against another country, and that is, of course, the United States. And we understand now that Japan was already trying to surrender when the nuclear weapons were used. And Truman dropped them to demonstrate to the world that we had these horrible weapons and a government psychotic enough to use them. The big stick. Now, along with his other comments about how professional and expert the FBI is and how they're doing the right thing, and please don't think of them as weasels, no matter how weaselish they get. The FBI Director Comey came on out trying to say, you know, we've got to refocus. There's a massive terrorist diaspora like we've never seen. ISIS is fleeing Syria to attack the West. No, they aren't. They work for the United States government, don't they? He's trying to do the booga booga. You know, the terrorists gonna get you if you call the FBI weasels. Terrorists gonna get you if you poke into Hillary's email server anymore. You all need to forget about how Hillary may have sold out the country and I let her skate on it because we've got terrorists. Big, bloody, nasty, foul-smelling terrorists. That's from Director Comey, the director of the Fools, Bunglers, and Idiots Department of the U.S. government. Now then, along the line of false flag attacks, over in the French town of Saumur, locals discovered a stash of ISIS flags, video equipment, Arabic newspapers, and a generator, which triggered a panic among the local citizens, who called the national police and anti-terrorist units, and they all flocked over there, and they were looking at all this stuff, the ISIS flags and the rest of it. And at one point, a senior French military figure showed up, announcing that the contents of the cave belonged to the military and were part of an unexplained exercise, the details of which they couldn't go into. And so it looks like the French military got caught planning another false flag attack on the French people. Because why else would you have ISIS flags and Arabic newspapers, various other things hidden in a cave? Now, the women's boat to Gaza is ready to break the blockade, and the Zaytuna is now a one-vessel women's boat to Gaza. Its sister ship Amal was forced to return to Barcelona because of engine trouble. And at this point, I think it's reasonable to suspect that the Amal was sabotaged, because they did that already back in 2011 when there was another Gaza flotilla. And one of their ships had put into port the night before in perfectly working order, and they went back to it the next morning. They'd foolishly left it unguarded, and the propeller shaft was broken. So, let us talk now about the economy. Things are getting very, very tense. Deutsche Bank is getting ready to go under. And a lot of people are wondering if this is the reason the German government a few weeks back was suggesting to their people to stockpile food and water, that there was going to be some kind of a national crisis in the immediate future. And because of globalism, that wonderful system of global entanglement for everybody, Deutsche Bank's troubles are already hitting stock markets around the world, including the U.S. market. And the big, hairy monster nobody wants to talk about is the derivatives exposure. When it goes under, the entire euro might unravel. Now, one of the problems that everyone is having to deal with right now is Deutsche Bank is this well-known name. It's been around forever, like the Federal Reserve, like Wells Fargo, like Bank of America. And people just absolutely cannot reconcile the reputation of these banks, first of all, with all the fraud that's going on, and the possibility that they could collapse. We saw the same thing going into the crash of 29. People got hammered. They got caught off guard because despite the warnings coming out, they kept saying, oh, no, they'll fix it. The bankers always fix these things. No, they don't, and they can't. Because it is the very essence of private central banking that it creates more debt than money with which to pay the debt until the debt brings that whole system crashing down. Now, we've been talking lately about how the declining economy is leading to a change in buying patterns. Certainly the shopping malls, retailers are feeling it. So's the restaurant business. Logan's Roadhouse has just gone into bankruptcy. 21 of their locations are closing. And it isn't just bankruptcy that's the issue. More and more restaurants trying to stay in the black are starting to reduce service, put off maintenance on their facilities, and starting to use cheaper ingredients and fillers in their food. And I'm not going to name any names here, but Claire and I have noticed that restaurants we used to like to go to, we can't go there anymore. The food has just become so full of chemicals and additives and fillers, it's just unpalatable right now. And it's a sign of desperation, trying to stay in business. Now, Germany's business chief, Matthias Döpfner, the chief executive of Axel Springer, is saying that in his opinion, Great Britain, after it breaks free of the EU, is going to be highly attractive for investors. There's going to be money to be made there. And that's very simple to understand, because when Great Britain breaks free of the European Union, the one thing that will not be there anymore is the huge chunk of Britain's wealth being siphoned off by that European Central Bank. And the rest of Europe, if it is still enslaved to the European Central Bank, will not be able to compete with Great Britain. Because they're all going to have two levels of banking masters. They're national banks, and above that, the European Central Bank, and they're all greedy money junkies and helping themselves to as much as possible. Getting rid of that top level is going to free up a lot of cash flow in Great Britain. Always remember, banks that do not have, or rather countries that do not have private central banks, are economic powerhouses. Countries that are enslaved to private central banks cannot compete with countries that don't have private central banks. This has actually led to wars. When the Civil War broke out in this country, Abraham Lincoln exercised his authority as president to issue a government-issued currency, the greenback. And the media of Europe just went ballistic. How dare a government provide its own money instead of borrowing at interest? And that's why most of Europe, in fact, pretty much all of Europe, supported the Confederacy. There was actually a serious discussion of invading the United States, invading Washington, D.C. on behalf of the Confederacy. They were held in check by Russia. Little bit of history you probably didn't get in your school, especially in this day and age of bashing the Russians at any and all possible opportunities. But this Matthias Döpfner is absolutely right. A Great Britain free of the European Central Bank is going to be an economic powerhouse compared to the remainder of the European Union that is still enslaved to that private central bank. Now, here's an interesting little story. This came out of Zero Hedge, and it's talking about the wild and woolly life of these ultra-rich bankers, and talking about how British bankers got busted for $300 million fraud. We're living a lifestyle straight out of the Wolf of Wall Street, hookers and cocaine. They talk about one guy, Brett Barna, threw a Wolf of Wall Street party in the Hamptons, complete with champagne, scores of bikini-clad women, costumed gun-toting midgets, and managed to, in the process, destroy a $20 million mansion. Lifestyles of the rich and undeserving, I think. The U.S. is going to crack down on North Korean access to international banking. You're not allowed to use our SWIFT system. You're not allowed to be part of our Federal Reserve. North Korea is going to shrug and say, all right, we're going to go with BRICS. Now, the U.S. government was trying to push the South China Sea issue, supposedly on behalf of the Philippines, as a way of provoking a war with China. And Obama cratered that in this disagreement between the Obama and the president of the Philippines, Duterte, over how to deal with drug dealers. The U.S. policy being, leave them alone. And Philippines policy being, shoot them dead, which actually does seem to work. So the U.S. has had to drop that whole Philippine vector, and they're back to pounding on North Korea as their back door to war with China. Now, what has North Korea actually done other than make a lot of stupid comments, like John Kerry is currently doing in Syria, and build up its defense, which every nation on earth does? And the answer is, no, North Korea hasn't done anything. They haven't attacked anybody. Remember that attempt to frame North Korea for the sinking of a South Korean ship? And that one fell apart when the recovered torpedo didn't match the blueprints of the North Korea's torpedo design. It's more Saddam's nuclear weapons and Assad's sarin gas. They're lying to you to start a war, and now they're lying about North Korea. I don't like North Korea's leadership. North Korea's got a lot of problems, but until they actually attack us, we shouldn't be making stink face at them. Now, during Monday's debate, Donald Trump accused Janet Yellen of being political in refusing to raise the prime rate until after the election, because that favors Hillary Clinton. Raising the rate now would drive the stock market down. That would benefit Donald Trump. And so CNN, the Clinton News Network, just trotted out Christine Romans to basically come on out and say the Federal Reserve is a honest organization. They are not political at all. Now, this so-called expert on the Federal Reserve, presented by CNN, actually majored in French journalism and mass communication at Iowa State University. Does not have a background in banking at all. And looks like she just got her talking points from the Federal Reserve, which is trying to protect its reputation, and deny that it is influencing government policy for its own benefit. Now, do you remember about a year ago, there was this horribly embarrassing incident where a Muslim teenager built himself a digital clock, and he took it to school to show his teacher. And the school administration said, oh my God, it's a bomb, and they called the police on him. Huge, big stink. Now, My issue was with the school administrators and teachers who looked at this device and weren't able to tell that it was, in fact, just a digital clock. There was no explosive of any kind. It was obviously a home hobby electronics kit. And everybody went ballistic over it because they were apparently too stupid to look at the electronics and realize there was no detonator and there was no explosive filler. It was just a digital clock. Now, the father of the teen has filed a lawsuit against Glenn Beck and Fox News and other parties for defamation of his son. Because when the story first came on out, everybody was on board this, it's a Muslim terrorist bomb. And it was. You had to be a complete moron to look at this and not know what it was. And the reason I resonate with this so strongly, I first started playing with electronics when I was about 9 years old. I was fortunate enough to have an uncle who was in the electronics business, and this was just when transistors were really starting to come on, and he'd just bring home boxes and boxes of stuff, and I would build things. I built a crystal radio out of Quaker oatmeal box. I actually still have that. We used it as a prop on Lost at one point. And I was building multi-vibrators and gate switches and whatnot, and I put together an amplified radio. And I actually won a science fair contest at my elementary school with this. And instead, today, had I walked into this school with this bit of electronics, what would they do? Arrest me? Have the police come on over, claim it was a bomb, even though there's obviously no bomb components in it? How are we going to incentivize our kids to learn about technology in order to compete in a technological global marketplace when anytime we see a kid who's out there trying to learn this stuff gets slapped around, gets the police called on him? I hope the father wins his lawsuit because the corporate media fed this whole defamation. Oh, we've got a Muslim with a bomb. It was not a bomb. And anybody with even a beginner's entry-level knowledge of electronics could have looked at that and said, this is not a bomb. This is a clock. That kid should have been rewarded. He should have been given a science award. He should have been held aloft as an ideal to inspire other kids to take an interest in science and technology. Like I said earlier, in the context of violence, look at the example being set for our children by our current government. No wonder kids are so screwed up. It's amazing. All right, we're coming up on a commercial break. We're going to break for 3 minutes. Back with more news after these words from our sponsors. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And today, the so-called independent investigation into Flight 17 released their report and, as expected, laid blame for it on Russia, saying that the missile was made in Russia and fired at Flight 17 from an area in eastern Ukraine under the control of pro-Russian separatists at the time. And by the way, they weren't pro-Russian separatists, they were pro-independent separatists. Okay, and interestingly enough, the Dutch-led investigation did not directly accuse Moscow of supplying the missile and its transporter system. And, of course, Russia continues to deny it. Now, there are reasons to call that entire story into question, mostly because we all know the degree to which we're being lied to every single day about every single thing in the world. First of all is the fact that the wreckage of the aircraft shows holes consistent with air-to-air cannon fire. The Buck anti-aircraft missile uses expanding rods to destroy its target, and there's no indications of that. The actual aircraft remains, and by the way, the Dutch didn't bother going out and looking at the remains of that. It shows the evidence of air-to-air attack by cannon fire. And all of the eyewitnesses interviewed by the BBC confirmed the presence of a Ukrainian military aircraft flying close to MH17 at the time it was shot down. Now, there were other reports of a Mayday call from Flight 17, something that's impossible with a single missile strike, but very possible if being repeatedly strafed. Now, my theory as to what was going on. Vladimir Putin was returning to Russia from a 6-day tour in South America. Now, Vladimir Putin's presidential aircraft, which is not as plush as Air Force One, is a converted commercial airliner, an Ilyushin, and it is painted in the same colors as the Malaysian Airlines livery. In fact, the paint schemes are very similar, straight lines down the hull, and then there's a little bit of a splay at one end. From a distance, it would be very easy to confuse one for the other, and Putin's plane was in that same area at the same time. And what I think happened is that Poroshenko wanted to shoot down Putin's aircraft. This would have created chaos and confusion in the Russian government and allowed Ukraine to go in and reconquer the eastern separatist republics. And I think the pilot that was flying that Ukrainian military airplane that the BBC witnesses said was there picked the wrong target. And there was this one story about somebody working at the military airfield in Ukraine who had seen the plane go off in the morning, saw it return with empty rails, and the pilot was upset, saying, I got the wrong plane, I got the wrong plane, I got the wrong plane. But it's another bash Russia, bash Russia. We got to take a break for station identification, and we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3, and we're still not taking phone calls until I can get through some of this news. We'll probably open up the phones toward the bottom of the hour. And if you're trying to get to my website and having difficulty, well, the Tantrum Squad is back. And we're trying to deal with them, and they're rolling around on the floor, and they're kicking and screaming and causing as much ruckus as they can, and we will fend them off. These children, please, if you can't behave, then kindly go home. All right, we already talked about the override. As you probably heard already, former Israeli President Shimon Peres has passed away, and the obedient corporate media is lauding him as a great man and a great leader and a champion of peace, which is a joke. Now, he did get the Nobel Peace Prize, but so did Barack Obama. And look how peaceful he has been. Al Gore got the Nobel, actually he accepted it on behalf of another group, for human cause global warming. The Nobel Peace Prize is a joke. It doesn't mean you're a man of peace. It just means you've got another gold thing to hang on the wall to impress people and get them to believe you when you spout whatever your nonsense is going to be here. But Shimon Peres, he was a founder of Israel. He was responsible for the Nakba and an architect of the occupation of Gaza and the West Bank. And he was also presided over the notorious 1996 Kana massacre over in Lebanon. A lot of people were wondering if he was, in fact, the Israeli mastermind behind 9/11 itself. He was not a man of peace. What was it that Mark Antony was saying in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar? The evil that men do live after them, the good is oft interred with the bones. Well, that was before corporate media came along. Because now the evil gets buried and the good is made up in this case. And it'll be on monuments and statues and all the rest of that stuff. Meanwhile, over in California, Jerry Brown has signed a new law that outlaws criticism of Israel. And I'm grateful that my former state that I used to live in, that things are so wonderful that the governor has nothing better to do than get involved with foreign politics, because I would hope Governor Brown would remember, or at least the voters remember, that Governor Brown's job is California and not Israel. And he does need to remember that, or he's going to be out of a job. And I have this message to Governor Brown, and in fact to every single American politician out there. If you are that worried about Israel, kindly move there and run for the Knesset. But while you are in the United States and you are part of this government, you put the United States first, second, and third, or you are a traitor to the voters who put you in your office. Now, not too long ago, the Brennan Center for Justice released a report analyzing violent crime data in America's 30 largest cities for the calendar year of 2015. And the report acknowledged modest increases in violent crime in Baltimore, Chicago, and Washington, D.C., but its official conclusion was reports of a national crime wave were premature and unfounded, and the average person in a large urban area is safer walking on the street today than they would have been at any time in the past 30 years. Now, this was being put on out there to get people to say, oh, the police are doing a good job. The FBI is doing a good job. We don't need to have firearms for personal protection. But apparently, just a few months later, the folks at the Brennan Center have been forced to update their study with crime statistics through September of 2016. And they're saying that, yeah, there is a major surge in crime all across the country. The police are not protecting us. In fact, the police are part of the problem. The police are robbing more Americans than the burglars and muggers and thieves are all put together. And they're shooting more innocent Americans than all the mass shooters and terrorists put together. And contrary to the propaganda from Black Lives Matter, they're shooting twice as many white victims as black victims. And let's see. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open up the lines for phone calls now if you want to call on in, because we're getting close to the bottom of the talking points. Now, if you have Windows 7 and Windows 8, you can go ahead and turn your automatic updates back on. Microsoft has now officially deleted the Windows 10 nagware. If you want Windows 10, you will have to pay for it. Not many people are going to do that because more and more of the users are out there saying Windows 10 has been nothing but trouble. And I agree. Now, we gave Windows 10 an honest test. We took Claire's last Choir laptop, which was running Windows 7, and we allowed it to update to Windows 10. And the first thing it did was force us all to use our Microsoft account, login name and password, which means anybody trying to brute force into your machine already has half the information necessary to do it. All of the music files that I had loaded onto that machine under Windows 7 disappeared. Not into the trash folder, I mean just gone. Completely gone. Now, of course, we have other copies of it and backups of it and so forth. But it's the idea that Windows 10 is even more abusive in saying this is how you will organize your files and this is how you will do things. And so we tried to use the automatic rollback to the previous operating system. It doesn't work, not 100%, and we literally wound up throwing the machine away. Just took it on out and threw it in the trash bin. It was unusable. All right, we're going to do a shout-out now to our on-air affiliates. Welcome back to our network. We're talking about, well, a bunch of different catch-up stories here, and we're starting to take phone calls again. Now, there's yet another problem coming out with Windows 10. And there's a consumer group, which, that is highly critical over Microsoft, saying that at this point there does need to be compensation for people whose computers were updated to Windows 10 without wanting that to happen. And there's a legitimate reason for that. A lot of the applications that we have on Windows 7 won't run on Windows 10. The versions that you can get for Windows 10 are all on month-to-month rentals. It's almost like Windows 10 looks at your applications and says, oh, this is a perpetual license. This shall not stand. And it's all about gouging more money out of people. And that is fascism here. Now, you know the Internet of Things. You've been hearing about it, where you have all these things that have Wi-Fi connectivity, and some of them are useful, like your digital SLR camera, and it uploads the photos to your. That stuff is kind of useful. Other things like the coffee machine and whatnot, who the heck needs that? But apparently, these Internet of Things processors have been co-opted for distributed denial of service attacks by hackers. And the world's largest DDoS attack came from a network of 152,000 compromised digital cameras and Internet of Things devices. And it knocked an entire media outlet off the Internet. And here's the problem. There's no way to patch it. There's no way to fix the problem. The code is burned into the chips. You can't patch a thing. I think we need to just grab just one cyber criminal and crucify them live on national TV. If they're in decent health, it's going to take them a week to die. And I think 90% of the cybercrime problem is going to go away because the FBI can't solve it. The FBI's official recommendation, Mr. Comey, is if you get infected by ransomware, pay the ransom. So tell us again, Mr. Comey, how the FBI are a bunch of professionals who are doing things the right way. Now, remember the problem with the Samsung Galaxy Note 7, which had a bad habit of bursting into flames, and there was a recall, and Samsung has released a replacement phone. They are also starting to burst into flames. Good tech, good engineering. Remember what I said about kids? When I was a kid, you were encouraged to be learning about electronics and engineering and science, and today you're discouraged. Maybe that's one of the reasons for the decline in quality of our products. The workers in those factories can't think, can't analyze, can't look at something and intuitively know that there's a problem that needs to be dealt with. They just follow the instructions in the book or on the computer, and they come out with crud. All right, we got some callers on the line. John in Texas, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. How you doing? Hope you're doing good.
I'm doing good today. Thank you.
You're right about the crime. But see, the funny thing is, it's like, I think the American people are going to ask the government to take away everything for them for safety because they're already doing it. Because, you know, you could fix the whole crime problem in these cities if you just legalize weapons, you know? You legalize weapons to the working people and let them buy a $100 gun, you know, so they can protect themselves. Because in these cities,
that would solve the problem.
It's like,
you know, I mean, the idea of allowing citizens to have concealed carry is not to have gunfights in the street, but to give the bad guys a reason to go someplace else. But the U.S. government won't do it because right now it's terrified of its own people.
It's not even just concealed carry, just knowing that, hey, there's people in this neighborhood, more than a handful that have guns, would just discourage everybody from going to that neighborhood. Would discourage the criminals, from going to that neighborhood.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Instead of having signs that say gun-free zone, we should have a sign that says, you know, 5% of the homes here in this neighborhood have guns. You guess which ones.
That would be true freedom right there. That would be true freedom, and that's why I think, you know, hopefully the American people are smart enough to not let them be scared into, you know, doing it. Because, like, you know, just like Roosevelt said, you know, the biggest thing we have to fear is fear itself. And, you know, you see what Jerry Brown's doing, and it's funny that you brought up him because that Did Kennedy's song, California Uber Alice, kind of predicted that pretty perfectly. It's a happy-go-lucky society, except if you talk bad about somebody, then we're coming down hard on you. You know, I mean? And
California's also passed some of the worst gun control laws in the entire nation. And again, gun control laws only disarm the law-abiding citizen. They have absolutely no effect on criminals. They turn guns into yet another big-ticket smuggler item. I mean, banning drugs hasn't stopped drugs from pouring into the country to the criminals. Banning guns will not stop the guns from pouring across that border into the criminals. Heck, our own government is giving Mexican drug cartels military-style weapons. And the fact of the matter is that if you know anything about chemistry and machine tooling, you can make guns. When I was a kid, I made lots of black powder guns. It's a lot of fun. And if you are in a neighborhood where everybody disarmed, even a 4-shot pepper box Derringer is going to give you an advantage. You can go in and rob a store with something that small.
You're right, because in the Philippines, they got a whole underground industry for making illegal guns. Whole underground industry over there. And you're right, anybody can make them. But my concern is, I want to get your opinion on it. Could they really be doing all this police action? Because like you said, they're getting ready for World War III. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, the more police and surveillance that they do have, the more basically recruits and draftees they can find.
Well, I think the surveillance is because the U.S. government is aware the American people aren't going to support any more war. They're actually afraid of us. That's why they're trying to disarm the law-abiding citizen. I mean, our government is part and parcel to a criminal empire. And again, it goes all the way back to the mid-1980s and the gun and drug running operation, and all the people involved with it became very rich and very powerfully positioned, especially the Clintons. And if you have a criminal government, it's going to support the criminals. That was the reason for that big stink with the Philippines President Duterte, where he says the problem with drugs is so bad in the Philippines, we're just going to start shooting the drug dealers. What's the first thing Obama says? You can't shoot the drug dealers. I'm getting a piece of that action, or some such nonsense as that. And on that one issue, they lost the whole South China Sea agenda. And they're giving, the U.S. government is giving guns to Mexican drug criminals. They're giving guns to terrorists in Syria, but you, the law-abiding American citizen, are not to be allowed to have guns. And by the way, Hillary Clinton has made it very clear, if she steals the White House, her first move is going to be to find some way to get rid of that gosh darn Second Amendment.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy. But you're right. The Filipino president, he's going after the top kingpin in the Philippines, the money. The money pushers, the money runners. That's who he's going after.
Yes.
And nobody likes that. It's kind of funny. But another point I wanted to make, and this goes to a little bit of World War III and a little bit of history, but the U.S. was only able to mobilize 8 million men in World War II.
Yes.
The Russians lost that many in the first 18 months.
Yes.
So we really have to think about. Really start thinking about what we're doing.
Well, there's the logistical concern, the fact that if we're making war with Russia on Russia's border, that's their home turf. The U.S. is having to transport weapons and personnel halfway around the globe. I'm sure that the military planners in the Pentagon are thinking that they're going to offer citizenship to all the illegal immigrants who will sign up for a tour of duty, but these are not going to be motivated fighters. You know, they're going to hunker down in the foxholes and not risk their lives and just wait out the time until they can get their green card. They're not going to be effective troops at all. And when you couple that with...
They're already doing that.
I know they're already doing that. When you couple that...
They already did it in the Iraq War.
When you couple that with these very expensive and poorly performing weapon systems coming out of our military-industrial complex, World War III is going to be a disaster for the United States. We're going to lose this one. We're going to lose it big time. We're already losing it. You know, that's why they're in such a panic over Syria. And even if it goes nuclear, we're still going to lose this thing.
Russia has already, you're right, Russia had already stopped us 2 times. The Aleppo's the second encirclement of so-called U.S. proxies. The first one was Ukraine. That's the Kosovo pocket up there. You know, they encircled not only the army of Ukraine, but the mercenaries that NATO put in there. So, you know, this is going out of hand, and it really needs to just stop. It really needs to just stop, because if World War II was 75 million, this could be in the
billions.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be a chance for all the population reduction people to say, yes, drop a few more nukes. We, you know, it's like the Georgia Guidestones. We should have no more than 500 million humans all over the planet, so we've got to find some way to kill off, 6.5 billion human beings. We'll nuke them or we'll germ them or something like that. John, I'm going to let you go here. I got a bunch of other callers waiting very, very patiently. Let's go to Alex in Florida. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael. I wish Donald Trump during the debate would have confronted Hillary Clinton when she claimed that we were hacked by Russian hackers, the DNC. He went on to say there's no proof of that, but he should have asked her, do you have proof of that?
Mm-hmm.
When she says no or yes, it would be at that point that he could say, there's your war hawkish mentality.
Yes.
You're blaming people without any proof whatsoever, and you're doing this to the Russians and to the American people.
And Julian Assange already came on out and said, no, the source of the DNC emails was not Russia. He implied but stopped short of saying that it was Seth Rich, and who died under very mysterious circumstances.
If I was Trump, I'd be talking about Seth Rich, and I'd be talking more about that kind of stuff. She's being a hawk, right? Essentially, we're at war with Russia and Hillary Clinton right now.
Well, there's war between Hillary Clinton and Russia, but I am not going along with it. We're going to have to let you go here, Alex. We got to take a break for commercials. More phone calls when we come back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go back to the phone. Steve in Virginia, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to just say I had a question, but I wanted to really say I really admire I really appreciate your mentioning the people. In other words, the Zionists in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like so many hosts of these shows are just frightened to death of saying the word and putting the blame where so much of it belongs. And I appreciate that you're not afraid to do that. But and you're just saying what's real, what the history and what's going on, and what history has shown us. But I wanted to ask you what you thought about the I call her the debate Hillary. Is it possible? We were thinking that maybe there may been a double the other night and not the true Hillary. Has anyone mention that to you as far as the debate night?
Well, no. Looking at her face and listening to her voice, there's no question in my mind that was the real Hillary Clinton, as real as she can ever be. But she may have been wearing leg braces to keep standing for an hour and a half. There was one doctor who claimed that there was one moment in the debate where it looked like she had a very mild seizure. We know that there's some kind of a gizmo on her back. It could be a device that delivers a shock to prevent a seizure from happening. We don't really know. Anything's possible. But again, according to the latest polls, 2/3 of America think that she is hiding a serious medical problem, worse than pneumonia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe so. We've heard some doctors mention that she definitely has some kind of a neurological condition that it looks like she's trying to hide. I had one other question. We've learned quite a while ago about the FEMA camps and these places that they have set up.
Mm-hmm.
What scenario do you see as a possible scenario where those would be used, or where they would try to use those and put Americans into those things?
Well, obviously, if there's any kind of an armed rebellion, they're going to need someplace to keep the prisoners. And I think the fact that FEMA has been setting these camps up tells us just how afraid the government has become of the wrath of the American people. And you need to remember that FEMA is not actually about helping ordinary Americans deal with disasters or emergencies. We saw that with Hurricane Katrina. The Federal Emergency Management Agency is all about protecting the government, continuity of government, protecting the government from us. That's what FEMA's real purpose is. And that's why they really don't do a whole heck of a lot during these real disasters. I remember during Storm Sandy, the FEMA people showed up. They were begging donuts off the Red Cross. They hadn't even brought any food with them.
Wow. Yeah. And okay. Well, and just one last point, if I could. Did you? I guess you may have seen this or heard this tape of Hillary when she was a younger lawyer, talking about the lie detector, and in this case, she defended. I think it was her husband. She defended against this rape charge.
No, it wasn't her husband. It wasn't her husband.
Wasn't her husband?
No. It was
okay.
But she was assigned the case, and yes, the purpose of a defense attorney is to provide the best case that you can for your client, and she did her job. But she really did seem to take a rather obscene pleasure in destroying this young victim on the stand, claiming that the girl was making it up, that she fantasized about rape, that she had a thing, and just absolutely destroyed her on the stand. And then later on during that TV interview, she admits the suspect failed the polygraph. Hillary, knew he had done it. He was guilty. And she thought it was really cool that she'd gotten him off.
Yeah. Do you think that that's a point that if it worked out that Trump could somehow work into a future debate, or you think he should stay away from something?
I think he should stay away from it simply because Hillary's going to turn around and say, that was my job to get him off. And, it doesn't matter how I do it or what I did. I succeeded in doing my job. So I think Trump would be well advised to steer clear of that. I am not sure if that is the case which led to the polygraph no longer being admissible as evidence in court. Anyway, listen, thank you very much for the phone call, Steve. We're going to take a break, back with more phone calls after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're going to get back to the phones here in a minute, but I wanted to get this story out there. Apparently, the BlackBerry name has become seen as a negative because of its involvement with Hillary Clinton, and their sales have been really bad. BlackBerry is reporting a loss of $372 million, and they're getting out of the phone business as a result. So, back to the phones here. Jeff in Idaho. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
They didn't sell a hammer with every BlackBerry. That was the problem.
Yeah.
Hey, I got three things for you. Okay. The guy that was the injector-in-chief, the diplomat neurological that's handling Hillary.
Yes.
Okay. There's some people that showed he had basically a white light flashlight to guide her with her Parkinson's in the back of the DNC. Okay. They did the same thing at the back of the debate. They had the darkened tunnel that Trump and her walked out of, and essentially they had the flashlighter with her steps to the ambulance. And then the third item, which is a serious one that you might want to work on with all your talents, is B-Witched, the twitch that makes the Optech glitch, making Lester a snitch. Okay, there's a company in DARPA that basically makes it's IOPTIK. They're out of they're near Microsoft. They make a head-up lens that's a contact lens. Okay, for about $350K. You remember, I only saw about the first 10 minutes of the debate because I got a phone call and I had to stay on it after that. The thing I noticed was it looked like Hillary had sand in her eye, her blink rate. The first couple minutes of the debate, you remember that? She's like, okay, this thing right here, someone basically on this lamecherry.blogspot.com basically showed this Optech thing. You might want to basically see if you can see an eye thickness thing on with HD.
Well, hang on a second. There's an issue there, and that is that Hillary Clinton does wear contacts normally anyway. When she doesn't, she puts on those glasses, but she doesn't like to do that anymore because it's showing that Fresnel prism in the one lens. Now, I don't know to what extent they can do a Fresnel prism in a contact lens. You get into an issue of orientation and alignment, which is also true for people with serious astigmatism. So whether or not we'd be, first of all, I saw that story come on out. I don't know how developed or credible this idea of the contact lens, because from an optical point of view, how do you get it to focus to where the person can see it within that space?
It's a confocal resonator, Mike. It's a confocal resonator. It's not using the front reflection off of a lens. It's actually focusing right back to the eye, curvature-wise. I'll send you some links on it.
All right, you can send me some links on it, but I'm looking at this with a great deal of dubiousness. I've had a lot of people send it to me, but frankly, I do have my doubts.
I do too.
Okay, that other little thing that you said about the B-which thing, could you include that in your email, because I couldn't write that down, okay?
Yeah, I will. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks a lot. We're going to switch over to Dennis in New York. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Hi, I'm Mike. Hey, do you remember Heathkit radios?
Oh, I loved Heathkit radios. I love Heathkit. I built their shortwave radio. I was like in high school when I built that, and I had it all the way until Claire and I were living in Washington State. and I got a newer, hipper transistor broadband receiver, multiband receiver, and I gave the Heathkit to somebody else, and it was still working when I gave that away. And I built my first CB radio from a kit. I love that stuff. And you can't get it anymore. You know.
You can on eBay, you know.
Well, but those are completed. Those are completed.
Hypnotic guys, you know.
You know, I wanted to build the Heathkit robot when it came out. But I love to build that stuff. I love building things like that. You know, but my big project right now is, you know, I focus on, you know, I'd like to build a new telescope. You know, because I did that too when I was in high school. I built my first astronomical telescope. I ground the mirror and everything, and you know, telescopes are like guns. You always want one that's a little bit bigger and more powerful.
You must live in an area that doesn't have a lot of light saturation or light pollution that you can see the stars.
Well, it's not bad here on Oahu. Obviously, we overlook Pearl Harbor, and toward the south is a little bit of light contamination. But I get to see the sky pretty good from here. And, of course, if you go on down to the Big Island and you go up on Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa, the observatory there, there's actually a campground way high up where you can spend the night with your own telescope, and the sky is just amazing there. Because you're above half the planet's atmosphere. It's 14,000 feet up.
Good here in the Kill Mountains, too, on a clear night.
Yes.
Boy, I tell you. You know what? I wanted to mention something about Trump and the setup they had for him, but more specifically, the taxes question. And the reason why maybe he really couldn't answer that, okay? If you remember, the job czar for Obama was Jeff Immelt, president of NBC, who once ran that, you know, Trump had his show, The Apprentice, on NBC.
Yes.
And although Trump may have been playing possum that first round, just as maybe both playing possum that first round, you know, before Hillary, before she got in, Trump was playing possum that first round, just like in a boxing ring. You don't throw your good punches in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that may be what happened there. But when we got to the tax question, you may have had a loyalty issue with Jeff Immelt. He may have some loyalty there. And here's an interesting thing about Jeff Immelt, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're building trains in Brazil. He's got a plant down there. They did a big PBS story. And in the year 2000, around this time of the year, I was down in New York City training with FDNY.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy came in one night, and he went out with a bunch of, an old college buddy that went out with a bunch of guys that his friends were friends, you know, his friend was associated with. They went out to dinner, and he said these guys are railroad financiers, and they were talking about putting money back into the rail system in the country.
Yes.
And you know how the big guys always know, you know, like 20 years ahead of time before we know anything, and they can set everything up before that.
Well, when you're talking about revitalizing our rail system, I mean, you need lead time like that. I mean, any one of these large infrastructure projects, like the light rail system we're dealing with here on Oahu, we're looking now at 8 years of construction, and it was 10 years of planning before that. But we definitely do need to bring our rail system back up to match the rest of the world. We need bullet trains. We need the cargo capacity, and then we need the manufacturing to put something on that cargo capacity. Our whole economic system has pretty much crashed, and that's why Wells Fargo and B of A and Lehman Brothers and all these other firms, they're literally surviving on fraud, and that fraud is the last step before collapse.
Yeah, well, the rail system may be a step in the direction towards rebuilding some part of the infrastructure here also. But as far as the tax thing, I just wanted to mention that because it seemed to be a reason why he didn't come out and you know, just put on the table, what about your Clinton Foundation, about the money that you donated to charity, that you donated to the Clinton Foundation, you donated right back to yourself. So the hypocrisy of all of that.
Yes.
And
I think he made a good point, you know, that he would release his tax returns as soon as Hillary releases those missing 33,000 emails. And, of course, Lester Holt just, you know, stepped on in and tried to get Donald Trump up. I don't think Donald Trump really understood the extent to which the moderator was going to be on Hillary's side. He was literally facing two opponents in this debate, and on the next debate he's going to be facing three. But I'm sure he's going to go on in there understanding that he's really debating three people and not just Hillary Clinton. And again, the feeling I had was that he was a little bit under the weather on this debate, but he didn't want to say anything because one of his big talking points is he's healthy and Hillary is not.
Yeah, that would have been an Achilles heel right there. They would have exploited that. Oh, look at him. He's a hypocrite because he's sick and sniffling. He couldn't do anything. Here's a funny thing about Comey. Little tidbit real quick about Comey. His grandfather we grew up in the same hometown, down in Yonkers, New York, right?
Yes.
And Comey's grandfather was a police chief right around the early 1900s. But he was never actually the police chief. He only made it to the rank of captain. Previous police chief bankrupted the pension system so bad, they decided never to have another police chief again. And so this guy was an acting police chief because he was brown-nosing the administration. And if you look at I guess the apple didn't fall far from the tree there. And you might be able to ask Gerald Celente about some of this because Gerald's been in some of the back rooms in Yonkers. He ran some Westchester political campaigns back in the 70s, and I wouldn't be surprised if I ran into him a couple of times, you know?
Yeah. And again, my issue with Comey is that he doesn't really have experience in law enforcement, and he was on the board of HSBC when it was caught laundering drug money. But, you know, in this country, bankers are above the law, you know? And now this banker is the law.
He's not law enforcement. He's just he's in legal, and he's in finance, but he was never really in law enforcement.
No, he wasn't, and it was almost this was his payoff for all the money that went from HSBC to the Clinton Foundation. It's all just tangled up together with that slush fund.
It must have been handed down from his grandfather. The whole attitude, you know.
Yep.
Whole attitude. Oh yeah, one more note too. I don't care how supposes Madonna wants to put on the calendar. She was never that great looking anyway.
Well, you know, like I said, she's 58 now, but actually, when she was younger, when she did her Playboy, the Playboy bought the shoot, and she looked really, really good. And I know that because one of the companies I worked at in Hollywood briefly literally had their office in a building way up on the side of Hollywoodland, literally right under the Hollywood sign, and our windows overlooked Madonna's place, and she was in the habit of walking around there without much in the way of clothing on, and we guys and a couple of the girls really appreciated that.
They do the same thing in Park Slope, Brooklyn. It's like looking at the Hollywood squares when you're walking down the street. Everybody's walking in front of windows with no shades, the curtains. It's like, look at me.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mike, it's good to hear your show. It's really cooking here. I want you to also, you may have forgotten, I mentioned to you and I sent you an email about a video that is titled 1948, The Birth of a New Specimen of Human Being. And basically, the United States is in the Zionist Israeli-Palestinian employment mode right now.
Yeah, it is humiliating to the American people to see our government such an obvious puppet to Tel Aviv. And look what's happening all over the world. You have all these nations that are sick and tired of puppet rulers. They're standing up to kick them out. It's happening in Iraq. It's happening in Afghanistan. It's happening in Yemen. It's happening in Libya. And Syria is trying to prevent it from happening in the first place. These people are not happy with puppet rule. Why should we, the American people, be any more satisfied with it? Especially when you look at the deteriorated state of our nation, and our government just gave Israel another $38 billion. We are being plundered. Our wealth is being strip-mined and given away to another country.
Well, all I can tell people is keep your eye on the markets. If the stocks are going up, then you buy your gold. because that's when the gold price goes down.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, listen, Dennis, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch to Mateus in Canada. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, I want to call in for the first time to give my feedback on the debate and go over 6 of the attacks from Hillary. But first, regarding those contact lenses, the caller, just make a note of looking up the DARPA announced a military contact lens last year that has a color projection linked up to a small personal drone for a trooper on the ground so that he can see over obstacles. So the breakaway technology is just really magical, almost like just unbelievable. And she does have hundreds of millions of dollars, and she is a puppet of the New World Order. So I wouldn't put it past her to have some incredibly exotic technology helping her out.
Well, one thing I did notice during the debate, especially during that first hour, when everybody was still going from the scripts, Hillary had this habit of taking pauses in the middle of her sentences at what appeared to be inappropriate locations. Now, when we're all talking, we will pause here and there for emphasis and clarity and separation, commas and everything, but she was taking these breaks in the middle, in areas. It almost seemed like she was pausing to wait for something to either be shown her or told to her. And there's another. Go ahead.
I really like your idea best. That box and that wire coming up the back of her skull is like a skull transducer that was transmitting words for her. That's my best bet on that one.
Well, I'll tell you why I find the contact lens story dubious. Aside from the technological limits and the optical problems, I remember when virtual reality was first coming out and you could buy these little headbands that had a mirror that went in front of your eye, and this was even before Google Glass, and Google Glass has turned out to be a disaster as well, for a very simple reason. The image coming from the device moves with your head. The background, when you move they don't register. The background stays the background, and then whatever's being projected over it moves around. And it's actually very, very difficult to make any sense of it, and that's why these devices have kind of gone off the market. And so I think Hillary would have a real problem. We do know she was reading notes that were on top of her podium, it doesn't feel right to me, and it's an interesting concept, and if the technology really works, that's good. But again, looking at how Google Glass did not really work out as a consumer item, I think there's a very good reason for that.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So my feedback, my take on the debate is that Donald Trump grossly misinterpreted how prepared. Can you hold me over, please?
Yeah, I can hold you over, but you're going to have to be really, really fast because we got one more call I want to get to before the end of the show. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Mateus, you had one more thing you wanted to share with us.
Okay, so I think Trump misunderstood how prepared she would be, because we all thought she wouldn't even be able to make it through without passing out or having a coughing fit or something. And so he kind of made a mistake on how ready she was going to be, and I don't think he invested enough in preparing. Some of the attacks, she says, you're a racist lie accusing Obama of being born in Kenya. He could have said something like, oh, that's rich coming from someone that says blacks are super predators that need to be brought to heel, and not responded any further to that, right? And then just totally made her look bad. And she's saying, maybe you're not as charitable as you let on. He just has to say, if you want to talk charity, why did he pocket 95% of money for it?
Okay, hang on. We can all play Tuesday morning quarterback on this. The debate is over, and the debate is the debate. And I'm sure Trump's advisors are already prepping him for the second debate, and they understand the reality that's going to be out there. As far as the issue about Obama being born in Kenya, that originated with the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2008. Was one of her pieces of propaganda against Barack Obama. Sidney Blumenthal, Hillary Clinton's associate, was the main one out there floating that story around. Now, Donald Trump, who was not inside the government at the time, can be forgiven for having fallen for the lie, as so many people did. But that doesn't mean that he was the instigator or the supporter of it. And that would have been appropriate. Anyway, listen, Mateus, I got to let you go. We got one more phone call I want to fit in before the end of the show, and that's Pat in Vermont. Thank you for waiting so patiently. I know you've been holding for a really long time. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. How are you?
Doing fine.
Great. I wanted to thank you personally for the way that you've handled the response on this debate. I mean, I know a lot of the issues, as do you, much more so, but not more than you, but I mean, I'm just speaking backwards. But basically, I was annoyed to the point of being irate, or I was in a state of rage at the end of that debate at Donald Trump. Hillary ate his lunch, from my perspective. I love Trump, and I hate Hillary. But I got done with that, and I was just so freaking annoyed that he didn't cover what he needed to cover. But I wasn't taking into consideration the fact that Les was acting as another debater and doing what he was doing, and that he was getting, teamed up on in the 50 versus the 2, times that he countered and stopped Donald dead in his tracks. So I'm appreciative of the fact that you're expressing what's really happened. I didn't see that at all.
Yes.
And I really needed to come to your show the next day and get some relief, because it saved me from going to Walmart and buying us some rope. I was going to hang myself after that.
No. Never hang yourself. It's always much more profitable to hang somebody else.
Agreed. So I'm going back to my 100 points for the first 100 days and not giving up on that whole idea, and hoping that his team does a better job prepping him this time, and that Judge Janine doesn't tell him to take it easy on the old lady again, and that he starts talking about the 45 or 48 million on food stamps, the 90 whatever million that aren't working, that lost good jobs.
The missing $6 billion from the State Department. There's the music.
Exactly.
I hate to cut you off here. We got to let you go. It's the end of our show.
I want to say thank you personally, Michael. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go here. A reminder, you are all part of the independent media. You take what you learn here, you take what you find at the website, you print it out, you have documentation, and you go on out and you share it with the rest of America. The future, not just of the United States, but of the entire planet, is at stake. Hillary will put us into nuclear war with Russia, and that's going to be a bad day for anybody not wearing 2 million sunblock. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.